Hi, investigators. Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy with this week's Australian Investigation Industry Weekly News, episode 35 on Friday, the 20th of November, 2020. Well, we've had a very busy week, as always, at the Australian Security Academy this week. We've been conducting our Bush and Rural Surveillance Program in Tasmania for the Department of Primary Industries, Water and Environment. If you're going to be a surveillance operative in a government department or do subcontracting surveillance work for a government department, you are going to be doing bush and rural surveillance at some stage. That's what they do. They're out there, they're watching for people who are illegally dumping rubbish or asbestos or chemicals, that sort of thing. And as part of our training program, we do specialist programs in bush and rural surveillance for that. So this week we've had some fun with our participants in the program. They had to go out last Wednesday and do a river crossing. Part of that river crossing was going across great big pools of water near a dam, and each pool of water they had to cross had all of these things in them. So they are long-finned eels. They're on their annual migration up a river in Tasmania, and part of our fun for this week was to get our surveillance operatives hands dirty in bush and rural surveillance and having some fun with stuff like that. That's what they're going to encounter in the bush, you know, apart from snakes, apart from echidnas, apart from everything else. It's about getting out there, meeting the local farmers whose properties they're going to be crossing, meeting the local emergency service workers who are going to advise them on rescue techniques and stuff like that, how they operate, meeting the local police and seeing their problems, meeting local shooters and seeing what the rules are and what to expect to encounter if you come across someone in the bush that's shooting. So all that part of what we do in our training. It was a great week in Tassie. We do it in Tassie because it's just a great place to do it. The weather's always fun. Today it's particularly windy, so I hope you can hear me. Now, in this week, there's been a fair bit going on. If you are a member of an industry association or thinking about it, I advise you to become one.
Investigation Industry Association sounds like a whole bunch of old people doing old people stuff.
So what's happened this week in the Investigation Industry Associations? Here's what happened at the AIPI. So this week they had 5 counter-fraud webinars from Monday through to today. They also had the Australian Certificate of Fraud people. They had a presentation that was on the 12th of November last week. They also had an interview with Keith Banks and John Sylvester earlier in this week on Tuesday. So it's been very busy at the AIPI. They work very hard for their members in providing information. There are lots of industry associations out there. If ever you're thinking of joining one, do so. It's networking. They advertise your services for free on there. So it might cost you $200 a year to be a member, but if someone's looking for an investigator that is licensed and they don't want an unlicensed investigator, they'll only be looking for licensed investigators. If that person's a member of an industry association and abides by the industry association's rules, that's a double bonus, and that's what you'll be seen to do if you join an industry association. So AIPI is just one of them, but they work very hard. So around Australia, that's a national industry association to look out for. So what's been happening this week? Well, there was, in the reports in the press this week, that a minister has had a bullying and harassment claim made against him by one of his former workers. So that matter, I'm not going into that, but if you want to find out more about that and the intricacies on investigating something like this, particularly in bullying, you can look at our previous program this week on no risk, where Jason Fullerton and Pat Flynn go quite into that. And Pat Flynn comes on and he talks about bullying, harassment, and what the rules are, and he goes through that sort of thing, the case law with Kerr versus the ATO, and Pat goes through all those things. He also talks about the statistics and the latest figures, and basically goes through how many mental stress claims there are and what they cost and how that compares to other cases. Quite an interesting one. So that's in our no risk program that we did earlier this week. So you can go and watch that. Jason and Pat cover it quite well. It's not covered on the matter of what actually happened in this case. They're talking about the investigation of it. So when it comes to sexual harassment, racial discrimination, bullying, all those sorts of things, that's what you learn in a proper government investigation course or Certificate 3 and private investigation course. Expect to learn from professionals the quality of Pat Flynn and Jason Fullerton, and really worth the watch. You see them being interviewed in our No Risk program, which is the program that was just before this one this week. So have a look at it. We do go further in depth in the course, and there are videos on it. But in this case, we're not talking specifics about that bullying harassment matter. We're talking about how it's investigated and how those sorts of things work. Now, whoops, I'm live. One of the things you see at bush and rural surveillance when you go and do that and study it, you'll see that they have a lot of workplace health and safety in bush and rural surveillance. Now, naturally, you're going out there and there's things that bite and there's plants that sting, there's all that sort of thing. There are things that you just can't predict that do happen. This one actually happened to me. And basically, this is what happened. So made a little video. So there was a pine tree, and I was up a pine tree filming my subject, who was in a shed in the country, and they were rebirthing cars. They were a bikie gang, and this guy allegedly had some kind of back injury. Now, the only place I could conceal myself was in a pine tree. So I was about 3 meters up a pine tree, and all these large black mountain cockatoos landed in the exact pine tree I was in. Now, what happened was they started eating the pine cones. So these are the young, fresh pine cones, not the grey ones you'll start a fire with. But what happens is they'd eat the part of the pine cone they liked, and then they'd just drop it. And when they drop these things, they're like hand grenades, the weight of them. And they started raining down on me because there's about 10 of these black cockatoos in this pine tree, and I was there as well. Now, I had just bought a brand new $3,000 video camera, and they were dropping these pine cones like hand grenades on top of me. And I wasn't worried about my hard head because it's not going to hurt me. I don't have a neck, so really head injury is the last problem I'm ever going to have. But these things were falling down. They were going to hit my video camera. So I spent the whole time trying to cover my video camera and still film with it from these things that were being dropped from heights above me. So it's something that I don't think you'll ever encounter it. I don't know if anyone ever will, but they just chose my pine tree. It was really funny. When I look back on it, I just laugh now. But we actually encountered some black cockatoos on our bush and rural surveillance program this week. You can hear them coming all around Australia. When you hear them coming, there's rumours go around that means the weather's going to change or something like that. Doesn't mean that. They're just a bunch of birds going out to eat some pine cones. So I've noticed that they're particularly prolific on the New South Wales northwest coast. So something to look out for there if ever you're doing bush and rural surveillance. Now, one of the things I like to look at each week when we're here is what employment opportunities are out there this week. So let's have a look.
Just gotta let it go.
I often sit and wish that I could just change my past. To think about you, Dad, there's so much shit that I could ask. Like, why am I still haunted by the day that you left?
Okay, is there any work out there this week? Let's have a look at what's going on. Senior Investigator and Conciliation Officer up in Darwin. They want to pay you up to $135,536 annually. That's for a senior investigator. Now, you'll need a Diploma of Government Investigation or a Certificate for Government Investigation, But it's a great job, and if you want to see that job, you can go on Seek and see that job, or you go to our dedicated private investigator jobs page, where each week I put up jobs about government vacancies and private investigation vacancies. They're there, I put them up so you can see them, and now there is up to 3 years history of jobs on there. Now, that's not to indicate that those jobs still exist. That's so if you're doing your research for a job as a private investigator, or a job as a government investigator, or as a risk manager, or whatever, workplace health and safety, you can scroll through those jobs and you can read what they require. Now, if you're a smart, savvy investigation applicant, you'll be looking at the language in those job vacancies, copying it and using that in your application, because in 2020, robots screen your application. Now, if you're using the key words that those robots are looking for, up goes your application to the top level, just like my parrots in my pine tree. They're at the top level. Okay, so where you want to be. So go to this website, look, see what's current this week and apply for it, but go through and do your research, and you'll see 3 years of old jobs there that you can check out. So that's one job that's come up this week that's available. These guys are looking for general insurance investigators. Now, they want them in Hobart, Melbourne and Sydney. So they're looking for general insurance investigators. Now, you must have an investigator's license, a Certificate 3 in Investigative Services. And some of the things that you'll be doing with Charette will be home burglaries, break-enter steals, arson, stolen motor vehicles, home and contents investigation, public liability dog bites, motor vehicle accident investigation. Just really, really interesting work. In fact, it can get very complex, the things that they investigate. They only investigate the high value things, and Charette have work in it. Now, get out there and put in your application with Charette. They'll want to hear from you. And if you're studying a CPP 30619, Certificate 3 in Investigative Services with the Australian Security Academy, you are learning how to do general insurance throughout that. There's several scenarios and assessments you complete that are specifically general insurance. So certainly don't be afraid to have a look at that. Okay. One of the things I often get asked is, how can I break into the industry? How do I get into, governance or into investigations or some kind of management role in there? One thing you can do is volunteer. Now, if you look up boards and volunteer to be on a board, and, you're a sophisticated person with some qualifications and stuff like that, it's the key to getting into organisations and getting some weight on your resume with your experience in that field. So they're always looking for people as volunteers. Here's one with the Arts Law Centre of Australia. Now, they wouldn't be receiving billions of dollars in government funding, so they always want volunteers. So you can go and you can see volunteers in, say, websites just like this one, where the Governance Institute, they advertise positions vacant there. It's a really good way to start. Now, if you watch some of our past episodes that we've been doing on Fridays, you'll see Rob Morton started his own ambulance business in Tasmania and his own health service in Tasmania after being for several years a volunteer for various ambulance services. And he saw gaps in the market and he was able to start a business in that, apart from his investigation work. So you don't have to go that high and that hard, but that's something that's you should keep in mind. Look for volunteer opportunities that are related to the kind of work you want to do. Pinkertons in New South Wales are after a licensed private investigator. Now, this is only part-time, but that's okay. Pinkertons are the oldest private investigation agency in the world, they claim. So keep in mind, that's on our website. Have a look at it. And what are they looking for? They're looking for people with strong investigation experience. So it might be general insurance, workers' compensation, that sort of. They're after civil investigators. They're not going to be investigating murders. They're not going to be investigating rape. They're not going to be investigating bank robbery. They're going to be doing civil investigations. What you're trained for as a private investigator. And it doesn't have elements of the offence in it or something like that. It's civil investigation. So if you've got a private investigator licence, get on with Pinkertons and Talk to them. They have 2,000 risk management professionals working for them throughout the globe. The CCC in Queensland, they've got a job up there. That's the Criminal Conduct Commission. They've got a job up there. They're paying up to $117,000 for a person with risk management and business continuity experience. Now, that is a great job opportunity at the CCC. The Principal Advisor of Performance and Reporting. Now, it's related to investigation. That's okay. But, that's a job where you'll need a Diploma of Government Investigation or a Certificate for in Government Investigation, and that's available in Queensland right now. M&A Investigations are looking for factual investigators in New South Wales. They're a great team at M&A Investigations. If you've got a private investigator licence, get in touch with them. Don't forget, you can see these jobs at our website on Facebook. So, have a look around there. You'll see these jobs there. Factual investigators in Sydney are required by Quantum Corp. Now, if they need factual investigators in Sydney, they're going to need them in Melbourne. They're going to need them in Brisbane too. So they're advertising. Get on there and just let them know that you're licensed, you're available, and where you live. You never know what opportunities might come up with some of these investigation agencies. Up in southeast Queensland, so Brisbane down to the Gold Coast, Corporate Investigative Services are looking for investigators. So they advertised this one only a couple of days ago. So if you have a license, get on to CIS and apply for the job. They want to hear from you if you have factual investigation experience. That means you're going out interviewing people about their general insurance claim or their stolen motor vehicle claim or their workers' compensation claim, whatever it might be. So there's jobs all around the country there. So Charette are looking them for Hobart, Melbourne, Sydney. You're seeing Quantum Corp Sydney there. CSI are looking for them on the Gold Coast and Brisbane, and others are as well. These are not all the jobs. I only put up 30% of the jobs. I am too busy teaching to put up the job vacancies. There are more job vacancies than I put up. But look, people, if you get on there and have a look at what's available, you might be surprised at the opportunities that are there. You don't think, that's an opportunity only in Sydney. No, these people operate nationally. They have contracts nationally. So if they've got work in Sydney, they will have work elsewhere too. And they don't know you exist if you don't tell them. Serco are looking for an intelligence manager in Broadmeadows in Victoria. Well, you better hurry up because Broadmeadows might get stolen by someone there very soon. So great positioning, Serco, great place to put it. But Serco are looking for that intelligence manager. So you can get on Seek, type in Serco, look for that. It's a regulatory compliance position vacant. And Serco operate all around the country. So it's a great opportunity, that one, to have a look at. What else have I got? I've got question of the week. Now, this is really important if you're an investigator and you're planning your future and what you're going to be doing. With this question of the week, the ex-student wrote to me and said, I did a Certificate 3 in Investigative Services in 2000. It's only 13 years ago. And I've worked continuously in New South Wales with my licence is valid to 2022. So this guy's been working, in general insurance and workers' compensation and all sorts of things, and he said, this is in the email he wrote to me this week, for 13 years, nearly 14 years he's been doing it. Now he's considering moving to Queensland and wants to know if his old Certificate 3 from 2006 will allow him to get a licence in Queensland. Well, this is a really good question. Now, does that happen? No, it's got nothing to do with it if you're already licensed. If you are licensed in one state and you want to get a license in another state, you just apply to that other state's licensing authority through mutual recognition. So you go onto their website, whatever state you're thinking of applying to, you fill out their form and you pay them their fee. Now, that fee might be for a year. For a licensed private investigator in Victoria, you can only get 3 years. So you have to pay 3 years to be a licensed private investigator. It's just under $600 for 3 years in Victoria. In New South Wales, it could be as little as $150 $57 or something in the first year. So you pay their fee under mutual recognition. Now, you don't have to do another qualification. You don't have to study. It's the same qualification everywhere in Australia. CPP 30619 in every state and territory in Australia. And even Victoria, the clock's ticking there and they're coming in on that. And that will be happening there very soon. So it's the same qualification. It's the fact that your license means you can get mutual recognition elsewhere. Now, this has been abused in the past by security guards and led to all the problems that they've had with security guards in Victoria, and similar to the one that's happened in Adelaide this week. But, you know, these are $13 an hour security guards. These aren't professional people who are trained licensed private investigators who can do a complex investigation and interview people and get jobs. So, you know, we're talking lower end there, but this is the higher end stuff. When you put in your mutual application in that other state, they will give it to you. It doesn't matter what qualification you've got at that point. It's only the fact that you're licensed that allows you to get a license there. Now, there are people currently who have a license in every state and territory. Now, why would you want to do that? If you're based in Melbourne, why would you want a license in Tasmania, Perth, Northern Territory, New South Wales? Well, these people head up big corporations that have contracts for insurance investigation with insurers and corporate clients and government clients. Now, the manager of that organisation or the owner will have a license in every state and territory. That's very expensive. It's $1,000 a year in South Australia, $1,000 a year in Tasmania. It's $600 every 3 years in Victoria. It varies all over the place. I can't keep up, but only the managers who have those big contracts, they elect to get that. It's voluntary. They do that. So they're covered should there be an issue in relation to compliance or governance of their investigation agency. Now, you as a licensed private investigator, you don't need a license in every state and territory unless you're going to go there and do work. I'm in Tasmania at the moment, right? I'm teaching government investigation here this week and last week. That's what I've been teaching. I don't need a Tasmanian private investigator license to do that. Now, that brings up the question, going from my question of the week there about mutual recognition. If you're licensed in one state, you can then apply to get a license in another state. The question is basically, okay, what's the difference between CPP 30619 private investigator course and the certificate for in-government investigation? They are two completely different things. Someone tells you can do a bridging course from one to the other. That's crap. Wait till you get an audit and have your qualification taken off you. You'll find out then they're not, right? So government investigation is about conducting regulatory compliance investigations on behalf of a government department as an internal investigator who is working for and paid by that government department, or as a supplier of investigations to that government department, such as WorkSafe investigations, TAC investigations in Victoria, MAIB in Tasmania. Those investigators who have contracts with those, they have to have a certificate for in government investigations as well, because they're doing government investigations. Now, the government department, their view on this is our internal investigators have to have certificate for in government investigations. So anyone that supplies investigative services to us must have a certificate 3 in investigative services and be licensed as a private investigator and hold a certificate for in government investigation. Now, you might find one government department, I don't know, the Weed Export Authority, that doesn't do that, but the majority of the heavy users of investigators, that's the workers' compensation investigation people, the third-party liability, that's your insurance on your rego on your car for third-party accidents, they all demand that the investigators have both. So you don't need it straight away when you begin. You only need the private investigation qualification when you begin, but you'll build up to the capacity to do those as you grow in the industry and grow in experience. So don't think you have to hold an advanced diploma of investigation for government to work for them. No, you don't. That's a management role. It's not an investigation role. You only need that certificate for in government investigation to do government investigations. So often there are tenders. There was one that just finished this week. It was a big tender in New South Wales of suppliers of services to government to do investigations. And that only finished on Tuesday, and I was assisting 3 of my larger clients with their tender proposal, and they've been capacity building that with their staff who are on their panel of investigators and have been working for them for periods of 15 years, 5 years, 6 months, whatever. We've been working to capacity build their compliance to meet that tender speculation that they must hold both. So Certificate 3 in Investigative Services is about civil investigation. That's it, right? It's about civil investigation, which is workers' compensation, CTP liability, general insurance investigation, maybe corporate sexual harassment, corporate bullying, corporate racial discrimination. These are civil matters. Government investigation is about enforcing regulatory compliance. So you are making people pay their tax. You are making people build their home to the building code. You are making people not suck all the water out of the river so the people below them on farms and agriculture don't get any water for their crops or their stock. So you might be working for the Department of Primary Industries, Water and Environment. That's who I've been working with this week. That's going to be some of your role. You're going to make sure, as a government investigator, people do not dump asbestos into the environment. So that's what you're doing there. You have authority and you'll be fining people. You could even end up upping that fine to its maximum capacity, and those people, if they don't pay it, then they could be in serious trouble. You have powers as a government investigator, and they are given to you by your government department when you work for them. As a private investigator, you have no power at all, none whatsoever. You are just a vetted, approved, trained professional in what you're doing, that people can rely on the fact that they have been vetted. They haven't, they're not a murderer, they're not a fraudster, that sort of thing. So that's what licensing of private investigators is all about. It's about background checks on the person. If they get information on someone, are they going to handle it so it's secure? They're not going to blab about it on Facebook like they do in those surveillance investigator Facebook pages where they put up videos of who they're doing surveillance on. They're not professional investigators. Forget that, right? Professional investigators don't do that. They don't bitch about other people on Facebook pages and stuff like that. So look, if you're looking for a job in investigations, don't forget, jump over to our Facebook page. There's new jobs that go up there every week. If you are looking to expand your investigation skills, join Jason Fulton and myself every Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how busy we are, in relation to no risk. You can see those no risk videos. I think there's 4 of them now on the page where you're watching this. So if you're looking for more information, do your research and have a look at those things. Each week on a Friday afternoon for half an hour, I go through the issues of the week, the job vacancies of the week, what's happening in industry associations, that sort of thing. So it's something that, you can build your knowledge base and do your research on. This week, over 7 people have graduated from the Australian Security Academy around the country in investigative services, and 9 people have graduated around the country in Certificate 4 in Government Investigation and Certificate 4 in Government Personnel Security Vetting. That has become our most popular course, so keep in mind, a couple of episodes back I go through that. I tell you who the people are that employ those vetting people, and you can even see how much those organisations paid. It's only 2 episodes ago, so go back on the Facebook page you're watching here and watch those episodes and you'll see all about that. If there's something in here you like, just hit the replay. Right, it'll play again. It's there forever, so you can check and verify what was said and see how it links to you with that job at Charette, or see how it links to you with that job in Broadmeadows at Serco. So, what a great place. So anyway, people, it's been a really busy week. This is the end of our time in Tasmania. Next week when I see you, I'll be back on the Gold Coast. We've been doing surveillance training down here. I love surveillance, I really do. I love how they present it in the media and they present it in the movies and stuff like that. I particularly love these guys and how they do it.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
That's mission complete for Friday, the 20th of November, 2020 on Australian Investigation Weekly News. I hope you've seen some opportunities there and enjoyed the program. And I look forward to seeing you again next week and with what we've got to cover. If you're looking for investigation work, replay this video. I'll see you next week. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. See you next week. There's drones to be flown and there's surveillance practice to be done. Going off to finish off that now. I'll be back on the Gold Coast next week. See you then. Bye. Great to have you. Thanks for watching.